What's up, church? Happy New Year! Hands up, righteous, come on! As I reflect, I find perspective. They're in the best and worst days of this life. You're always on my side. Hey! You're in the pain, you're in the promise. And on the days the furnace finds my faith, you're the fourth within the flames. I don't need to know. I don't need to know what the future says, 'cause if the past could talk, it would tell me this: my God isn't finished yet. If he did it before, he can do it again. So I'll trust him with what comes next. The God I know is known for faithfulness. Hey! Yeah, my hindsight says I can trust him with what's next. For the God I know is known for faithfulness. Hands up, come on! There's more ahead than what's behind me, 'cause through the highs and lows and in between, God, you go ahead of me. Hey! And when you call me, I will follow. And if the water falls beneath my feet, then you pull me from the deep. Hey! I don't need to know what the future says, 'cause if the past could talk, it would tell me this: my God isn't finished yet. If he did it before, he can do it again. So I'll trust him with what comes next. For the God I know is known for faithfulness. Let's go! Yeah, my hindsight says I can trust him with what's next. For the God I know is known for faithfulness. Sing it out! God's not done with us yet. Sing this out with me, church. My God isn't finished yet. If he did it before, he can do it again. So I'll trust him with what comes next. 'Cause my hindsight says I can count on this. My God isn't finished yet. If he did it before, he can do it again. So I'll trust him with what comes next. For the God I know is known for faithfulness. Hey! Yeah, my hindsight says I can trust him with what's next. For the God I know is known for faithfulness. Yeah!
Happy New Year, Church by the Glades. God can work miracles in our lives. Do you believe that? Come on, you sing this out with us. Miracles when you move, such an easy thing for you to do. And your hand is moving right now. You are still showing up at the tomb of every Lazarus, and your voice is calling me out. And right now, I know you're able, and my God, come through again. You can do all things, yes you can. You can do all things but fail. 'Cause you never lost the battle. No, you never lost the battle. And I know Everything's possible by the power of the Holy Ghost. A new wind is blowing right now, breaking my heart of stone, taking over like a Jericho, and my walls are all crashing down. And right now, I know you're able. And my God, come through again. Yeah, 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 yeah. You can do all. Say you can do all things. You can do all things but fail. 'Cause you never lost a battle. No, you never lost a battle. I know you never will. You can do all things. You can do all things but fail. 'Cause you never lost a battle. No, you never lost a battle. I know you never will. You never lost a battle. Never lost a battle. You never lost a battle. No, you never lost a battle. You never will. You never will. You never lost a battle. Never lost a battle. You never lost a battle. Never lost a battle. You never lost a battle. You never will. You never will. Never lost a battle. You've always been true. You never lost a battle. You've always been good. You never lost a battle. You've always been there. You've always seen me through. You never lost a battle. Through every trial. You never lost a battle. And through all the pain. You never lost a battle. There's someone that I know. He can do. You can do all things. You can do all. You can do all. 'Cause you never lost a battle. No, you never. I know. You never will. Come on, church, you lift your voice. You sing this out. You can do all. You can do all things. Yeah. You can do all. You can do all things but fail. 'Cause you never. No, you never. I know. You never will. I know. You never will. I know. You never will. Thank you, God. Never lose a battle. Amen.
Hey, what's going on, Church by the Glades? So glad you guys are joining us for our online weekend services. My name is Nick. I'm the student pastor here at CBG. And before I go any further, I have to stop and say this. The Wave is reopening. That's right, you heard me right. This upcoming Wednesday, January the 13th, the Wave is back for all middle school and high school students. So if you're a student, you got your plans already the 13th. Parents, kick your kids out, have a date night, make sure they come to the Wave. It's gonna be safe, engaging, creative, and so powerful. So please make sure you do that. If you're looking for any more updates or any information regarding this, make sure you hit up our Instagram page at @thewave_CBG. We're posting all of our updates there. So we can't wait for the 13th. It's gonna be amazing. But anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us. We are accompanied right now by our dance team leader extraordinaire, Quincy Gordon. What's going on, brother?
What's up, Pastor Nick, and what's up, Church by the Glades Online? Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to our first-time guests. Listen, if you're a first-time guest, do us a favor and text the letters FTG to 954-329-1818 so we can get you connected to what we've got going on here at Church by the Glades. And listen, as one of the leaders of the dance team, it'd be a huge miss for me not to mention this, but we're looking for dancers. So if you're a dancer, you got some dance moves, email us at dance@cbglades.com so you can get the information you need to audition for our team. And make sure you also share this service with all of your followers so they don't miss out on the amazing New Year's message that Pastor David has for us.
So good, man. Yeah, so please do that. I mean, I'm gonna audition, you know what it is, because I'm a dancer out here. Psych, I'm definitely not doing that. But man, please make sure you stay connected with us. And it's important to do that because this weekend, right now, we're starting a brand new series. It's called Rebuild. Oh my gosh, Pastor David is gonna lead us through some practical ways that we can rebuild our lives after the year that just passed, which is 2020. And it's a brand new year. 2021 is among us, so we got to take some steps to rebuild our lives, whether that's our finances, our faith, or maybe it's our family. Whatever it is, Pastor David is going to lead us through those practical steps in ways we can rebuild our life. And if that's not enough for you to stay coming in January, the 23rd and the 24th of January, that weekend, we have Christine Kane in the building. Dude, it's gonna be so good. So please don't miss that weekend. She is a profound communicator and an incredible leader. She leads the A21 campaign, which is helping people all over the world to abolish human trafficking. So she's gonna be here that weekend. Do not miss a weekend in January as we're launching our Rebuild series. We're so glad you guys are here. Thank you for joining us. We do have an amazing service headed your way, so please continue watching and let's enjoy this service.
What's up, everyone? This is Lucas. We're about to watch Church by the Glades online. Get the whole family ready, and if someone's asleep, you need to wake them up, okay? Wake them up, get them ready for Church by the Glades.
Eisenhower informs me that the forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations. The flags of freedom fly all over Europe. For this victory, we join in offering our thanks to the Providence which has guided and sustained us through the dark days of adversity and into life. Much remains
broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round. And we can fight the fighter, but I see it in you, and we can walk it out. Move mountains, we can walk it out and move mountains.
By way of the Marshall Plan, the U.S. would send food, supplies, troops, medical equipment, and engineers. From 1947 to 1951, America would lend $13 billion to help rebuild 17 European nations.
All we need is hope. And for that we have each other, yes. And for that we have each other. Oh, we will rise, we will rise, we will rise. Oh, yes, we'll rise. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise. I'll do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up high as the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
So what is up, Church by the Glades? 2021, if you're a guest, I'm thrilled you're with us. My name is David. I'm one of the pastors here at CBG, and we started a new series. It's called Rebuild, and my guess is as we step into 2021, there's some things in your life you need to rebuild. You need to rebuild your life, perhaps financially, maybe rebuild your business, rebuild your professional life, rebuild your social life. As we have been in the past year quarantined, it was weird and wonky. So how do you rebuild? How do you rebuild? Well, if you're new to the church, I'm kind of a history nerd. So I want to use a time in history, recent history, that America helped other nations rebuild. So we're going to jump and study a little history. We're going to study the Word of God. I hope you brought your Bible. We'll jump right into this. And again, I want to give you a little context. This series, like many of our January series, has the idea of working hard to change your life and make your life better. And so typically during the January series, if I have a theme like this, like last year was called, Build to Last, sometimes I'll excuse lazy people. Like if you're lazy, I'll say you might want to stay home in January and come back in February because we have a nice little relationship series in February. So if you're lazy, go ahead and stay home. But I'm not going to say that this year. Why? Because last year when I said it, I needed your parking space. This year, I don't need your parking space. This year, there's plenty of parking at Church by the Glades, at Lake Worth, plenty of parking at Sawgrass. Give it up for yourself for showing up and coming to the house. Thank you for being here, actually coming to a campus. One of the great things is I know with COVID, people are afraid of getting sick. Listen, we've been open physically since September, our buildings, and as far as we know, no one who has attended nor any volunteer has gotten sick. We wear masks. This is a 2,000-seat room. You can sit up in the corner all by yourself if you want, all right? So, and a Lake Worth, 800-seat room, so plenty of space. It's a safe thing to do, so come back to church, come back to church. If you live in South Florida, unless you have been sheltered in place the whole time, and I get it. Some people, my mom has stayed home most of the entire time. She's 89 years of age. Or if you're watching right now from Nebraska, or you're watching from Alaska, or you're watching from New York, we're glad you're with us. So people watching all over the world by way of our online campus. Give it up to our online folks watching right now in Belgium and Brazil and Burundi and the Bahamas. So glad you're with us right now. So listen, if you're lazy, go ahead and come back to church. And guess what? If you're kind of lazy, I think you get a bit of a pass this year. Because 2020 kind of made us lazy. Can I be that honest? I mean, I'm a very proactive, I think, fast-moving, ambitious person. But that quarantine, Zoom meetings, right? Where you can have a meeting and be in your pajamas or your gym shorts, right? Not shaving for free. It just kind of engendered 2020, kind of a lethargy in many of us. So guess what? If you felt a little slow, like you're not getting things done, you're a bit stuck, hey, you come on back to church. Even if you're a little lazy, you come on back right now. You get a bit of grace because 2020 was a weird year. In fact, 2020 was so weird. I've heard people say, maybe you've said this, that people have said 2020 was the worst year ever. Have you said that? Have you said that? If you said that, put that in the chat. Have you said 2020 is the worst year ever? Listen, if you said that, I get it. It's been tough. No matter where you're watching in the world, but here in the U.S., it's been one of the craziest years of my lifetime. And 2020 has been depressing. It has been discouraging. 2020, it was devastating. I mean, people in our church, due to COVID-19, lost people they loved. We've had people of our church family who died from this thing. So according to the CDC, about 1.85 million people globally died due to this pandemic. That's horrific. So that is bad. If that's going on, listen, you have our prayers, you have our sympathy. If you lost someone you love, or you lost your job, or you lost your house, I mean, this has been a time of loss. At the same time, just for a sense of perspective, 2020, the worst year ever. I don't know. I'd say maybe the worst of my lifetime. But if you lived during World War I, or if you're a member of the greatest generation, the senior most of our senior adults, and you weathered the Great Depression and you weathered World War II, here in South Florida we have living survivors of the Holocaust. Even as far as pandemics, that pandemic that happened almost 100 years ago exactly, back in 1919, 1920, called the Spanish flu. Now, almost 2 million people have died from coronavirus worldwide. The Spanish flu, there were 50 million victims. And where COVID-19 seems to affect the older people the most, the Spanish flu affected children 5 and under the most. The greatest number of fatalities by percentage were children. So that generation didn't just lose tens of millions of people, it lost its future. So listen, I'm not trying to minimize your pain. If you lost someone you love, or you were hurt this past year, or you were frustrated, or you were depressed, God bless you. But I want to point out that people throughout history have gone through these tough seasons, but our great God has hardwired something into humanity. There's something very special and sacred about the species He made called people, that He's given us this resolve and this grit. And when times are bad and when times are tough throughout history, we don't just roll over and die. We don't give up. As a people, as a race, God made us with this resolve and this courage that when things go bad, we get up, we bounce back, we fight back, we build back. So 2020 sucked. Can a preacher say the word suck? Okay, listen, I probably shouldn't. I don't say it often. In fact, when Zane was like 4, he came to me, my youngest, and he said, "Dad, can I say the word suck?" And I'm like, well, I said, it's not really a swear word or a cuss word. It's not a great word. So we decided it's a once a month word. So once every 30 days, he can say the word suck. This is my once a month time. 2020 sucked. That might be the title of the sermon, 2020 sucked. But 2020 is now behind us. Now the first part of 2021, yeah, it sucks too. It's been weird and painful. It's been like the 13th month of 2020. And I'm not here as your pastor to promise you it's all going to be smooth and easy and change abruptly. We have issues as a nation. We have issues as the church. We have issues personally. But guess what? We're going to press into this God who made us, that we don't quit and we keep fighting and we don't give up. And we're cool if we have to rebuild a few things. If we have to rebuild, we'll just rebuild. So the study is going to be on the book of Nehemiah. And no one came to church today thinking, I really want to study the book of Nehemiah. In fact, you're like, where is the book of Nehemiah? Well, it's right between Ezra and Esther. No help, right? Check the table of contents or use your phone. If you're watching online, go ahead and find the book of Nehemiah. I will spend the next few weeks in this remarkable book. Now, if you've never studied the book of Nehemiah, let me give you some buy-in. Nehemiah is the best book on motivation, inspiration, on success strategies, on practical principles that will fuel your progress. Nehemiah is the best book, not just in the Bible, maybe in literature on leadership. So if you lead anyone, right? If you lead, you're the co-captain of your JV basketball team, or you're the assistant manager of the night shift at Wendy's, or you lead a Fortune 500 company, it is a great book and study on the power of God to bless and anoint smart leadership. So we'll be in the book of Nehemiah. I'm very excited about studying this book with you. It's going to be great stuff. But to give us some perspective on this difficult year, it is a story about a comeback, a story about a rebuild. Why? Because things were messy. Let me start with you, Nehemiah chapter 1. If you find Nehemiah, you go to chapter 2, but just set the stage. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 3. They said to me, Nehemiah speaking in the first person, Those who survived the exile are back in the province. They are in great trouble and disgrace. Get ready to read. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. Nehemiah is a Jew. He hears from some people who have been in Jerusalem that it's in utter disarray. Sometime before, in fact, we know from history, about 587 BC, due to the fact, generational sin, rejecting God time and time again. See, if you want to stiff-arm God and say, God, stay out of my life, God will respect your decision. God gave us free will and autonomy. And so the Jews, instead of recognizing, hey, God, you chose us. You blessed us. You gave birth to our nation. The whole Exodus thing was phenomenal. You gave us the promised land. They started to spiritually drift generation after generation, saying, God, we're cool. We got this. And God respected that decision. He took off his hand of protection, and the Babylonians, in the latter part of the 6th century BC, came and conquered Israel and left Jerusalem in ruins. And so the issue is this: they destroyed the temple, destroyed much of the city, and that wall, that protective perimeter wall, was completely destroyed. It was rubble. And in the ancient world, if you didn't have that perimeter wall, you didn't count. You didn't make it. You see, it was times of invasions and warlords and marauding bands of raiders. You had to have that wall, and the people of God had no wall for decades. They were relegated to a third-rate people group. When Nehemiah heard this, it broke his heart. The wall of Jerusalem is broken. And God began to birth in his heart a dream, a vision. God, there's the problem. I'd like to be the solution. God, here is the issue. Listen, God has a dream and a vision for everyone's life in this room. If you're watching right now, I don't know you, but I know this about you. God has a customized, unique plan for your life, and God's vision and God's dream won't just be about you. In fact, the way you recognize the true God dream is always about building his kingdom and other people. So Nehemiah is like, wow, the wall is decimated. The city's in ruins. So the best book in literature about motivation and success and leadership is not about building the wall, it's about rebuilding the wall. So we're in a season, 2021, we're going to rebuild a few things together. So make sure you're here every week. Invite people to come. You know, thank you for watching online. And by the way, don't log off. Some of you guys watching, these guys don't walk out mid-sermon. You do. Batman, I'm just kidding. You do. Listen, hang in there. Why? Because somewhere towards the end of the message, I want to share with you a principle that is so strategic. I can't oversell this. This thing, it's a simple thing that everyone watching can do. Whether you're a Christian or not, you can do this thing. And studies will show you will exit 2021, no matter what happens, with likely a greater degree of mental and emotional health. Now stay with me. This past year, stressful, frustrating. I mean, think about it. We're all kind of wigged out, man. Our eyes twitching. This last year was so hard. But I want to show you a survey done that if you'll put this one thing into practice, you can exit 2021 with a greater degree of mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being than you have right now. Maybe the most important conversation you have all year long. Have I made myself clear? So don't log off. Stay with me right now. In fact, invite somebody to come watch this with you. All right, Book of Nehemiah, great book. And again, so I'm going to study the scripture with you. It's a very ancient story, but I want to give you a more modern example of a rebuild. So in history, last century, in the wake of World War II, Europe was devastated. As a little creative piece was trying to drive home the point about the devastation of Europe. Guys, go ahead and give me the different LED. Ready? Go back to devastated Europe. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and... Oh, give it up for the creative team right there. Aren't they good? See, World War II exacted a terrible price from America. We lost countless young men and young women who gave their lives in battle. Others came back wounded, disfigured, disabled, lives forever changed. But no battles were fought on U.S. territory or soil. Now, none of the 48 states, only 48 states at the time. Of course, there was a battle in Hawaii. We had a presence in the Philippines, Midway Island, that was a U.S. territory. But as far as the United States of America, nothing happened here as far as a fight. In other places in the world, very different. In North Africa, in the Pacific, in Southeast Asia, in mainland China, of course, Soviet Union, and in Europe, the battles happened there. So when the war was done, the Allies, if you will, the good guys had been victorious, but the devastation was pervasive. Millions were homeless. Cities like Berlin, 80% of the city center was destroyed. In Tokyo, 250,000 buildings and homes were destroyed during the latter part of World War II. Warsaw, Poland, 90% of downtown was eradicated. London, the Blitz, they were bombed at one point over 2 months, every single night, destroying a great many buildings and homes. So this was pervasive. So everything was broken in Europe. And Europe had to rebuild, and the Americans stepped in. So you think, 2020 versus 2021 rebuilding were challenged? There have been tougher times in history. So I'm going to show you the principles over the next few weeks. It's vital that you're here, or at least log on the entire time, because these strategies are biblical, historical, and will translate perfectly to your life right now. I want to help you dig out. I want to help you get stronger. I want to help you get better. I want to help us all learn a few things. And if you're frustrated and lazy, I want God to ignite a spark and to revisit your life with sanctified ambition. All right, book of Nehemiah. We're going to take a little bit out of sequence. I want to jump, if it's okay with you, because I love a good rebuild story. I love a story of a rebuild, don't you? I love, not just in the Bible or history, I like, sports. I'm a football fan. I remember when Butch Davis took over the Hurricanes in the late 90s. Gosh, the Hurricanes back in the 90s, they needed to rebuild. They'd had sanctions, they lost scholarships, but he built one of the greatest teams in sports history. That 2001 Hurricane team put more guys in the pros than any team in history. That was a rebuild. Business people, Steve Jobs. Remember he helped build Apple, then they fired him? Then they began to decline and struggle, and then after they fired him, they rehired him, and he turned Apple computers into this tech giant that it is today. So you see, it's time and time again, these awesome stories about rebuilds throughout history. It's vital to see when someone builds it back. How about this? Johnny Lawrence, when, all those years after, Daniel LaRusso and Mr. Miyagi took down Cobra Kai, but now Cobra Kai is back. Anybody watch Netflix? All right. How about junk food? 1930s. Twinkies were invented, 1930s. Who needs simple carbohydrates? Anybody? Right there, brother, I got you. That's right. You come to Church by the Glades, you get blessed, right? Twinkies. Oh, yeah. These travel pretty well back there. I got you, man. Oh, interception. Boom, right there. I got one more. Twinkies. 1930. Nice catch. 1930, very successful, of course, until the Great Recession. In 2012, the Hostess Corporation went bankrupt. What'd they do, give up? No, their scientists, their R&D department went back and began to revisit the Twinkie. They changed the recipe. They got the Twinkie where it would last twice as long on the store shelf. Now 375 years. 65 days. And they rethought the Twinkie. If they can reinvent a Twinkie, they can reinvent you, right? If they can rebuild the Twinkies and the Hurricanes and Apple, Cobra Kai, we can rebuild ourselves. I'm praying for a very different 2021 for this church. All right, so we're gonna pick it up. How about a little Nehemiah chapter 2? I'll explain this. It's a little complicated, weird names, but go ahead. We'll wade through the Bible together. Chapter 2, Nehemiah speaking. He says, in the month of Nisan, I don't have that at my calendar. What is that? All right. A little context. Chapter 1, when he got the news about the destroyed walls in Jerusalem, that's the month of Kislev. 4 months have passed, about 120 days. Isn't it funny? God gives you sometimes that dream and that vision, but you can't take action on it right away. It just has time to kind of spiritually percolate in your heart. So he has this dream. I'd love to make a difference, but I can't do anything. So 120 days or so have passed. In the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, some people think the Bible is a fairy story. It's fake. Here you see the history. They're giving you names and dates we can verify. So this story goes down about 445 BC, all right? 445 BC. It says, in the year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought to him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. All right, this is his job. He's the wine guy. He's the wine guy, not the sommelier. He's not that fancy. He's the wine guy. I'll talk about that in just a moment, all right? And the king asked me, verse 2, why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This could be nothing but sadness of heart. And I was very much afraid. What's happening there? Well, if you're in customer service, smile. Can I just say that? I kind of feel like COVID has given customer service people permission to be grumpy. Try not to be grumpy. I know you're wearing a mask. I know you're working on your feet. But if you take care of people well, they will take care of you. So I love when a customer service person is positive and happy. I love Alyssa at the front desk of my gym, man. She always has this giant smile. She greets you on the way in and on the way out. I love, Danielle at my other gym. She's the same way, so positive. If you're a server, you will get better tips. If you want to grow in God and grow your gratuity, smile. What's taking place here is Nehemiah is bringing wine to the king, and he ain't smiling. And the king says, what is up with your sad face? Right? And you saw, he wasn't worried about his tip. He's more worried. He's like, I was very much afraid. Why? Because the king wouldn't just take away your tip. These Persian kings, if you misbehaved in their court, they would fire you with real fire. Remember Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Same kings, right? So he's thinking, oh my gosh, I made this horrific mistake. But he recognizes this is also his moment to take a shot. Verse 3, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Good manners. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins? The gates have been destroyed with fire. Then the king said to me, what is it you want? Then I prayed to the God of heaven. Okay, chapter 1, he prays a bunch. Chapter 1, he's waiting because 4 months he's waiting. So what's he doing between the waiting? It's proactive waiting. So as he waits, he plans, he prepares, and he prays. This year we need to pray more. This year, more time on our knees. More time going to God, seeking God's wisdom and counsel, and more time being grateful for the good things that we still have. So you'll see in chapter 1, he's a man of prolonged, devout prayer. But here he prays what I call a shotgun prayer. Like you got a moment and there's like a crisis and you need God to invade that situation. So basically his prayer is, Lord, help! Step in! If I mishandle this guy might take my head off or throw me in the fiery furnace. But he prays for God to help him. So King, I'm upset. My face looks this way. I do apologize, Mr. King, but it's Jerusalem. So I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, let him send me to the city of Judah where my ancestors are buried. Get ready. So that I can. Yes, the best book on leadership and motivation and success is not a build, it's a rebuild. That I may rebuild it, Man, this is such a rich passage. All this stuff going on right here. That he wants to help rebuild the wall and the city of Jerusalem. Now, a couple problems. Number one, he wants to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, but he lives in Babylon. He's 1,700 miles away from Jerusalem. In fact, you're going to see he's never ever lived there. He has his heart for a place he's never been to, but it's his ancestral home. So he has this vision, he has this passionate vision, but his passionate vision is not aligned with his present vocation. So what does he do? And by the way, he's the wine guy, or he's the wine steward. That is not the sommelier, he's not that fancy. Basically, he's the guy that tastes the king's wine to make sure the king's wine is not poison. Because the main way you bump off a king in the ancient world was poison, right? You contaminate his drink or his food. So it was his job to taste it and make sure it was okay. So guess what? That's a pretty simple job. That job description would be, don't die. Don't die, keep yourself and the king alive, right? And as you see as we unfold the book of Nehemiah, this man's extraordinary. He is incredibly intelligent. He is very gifted, has amazing aptitudes and incredible intuitive leadership. And this job, being the wine guy, with the job description, just don't die, is way under challenging a man of these aptitudes. He's overqualified. What he doesn't do is get frustrated when God gives him this vision back 4 months before and walk out and storm out and quit and says, no one appreciates me here. We're not sure if he's an employee or a slave, but slaves could run away. Think about it. Moses' older brother was 83. Aaron ran away from Egypt, right? So slaves ran away all the time, right? He could run away, but notice when God gives this vision for Jerusalem, 1,700 miles away, he stays. He prays and he stays, but he stays. That's a word for somebody because right now you feel like, gosh, man, they don't get how smart I am. I should be running this place. I'm going to quit. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. This school is getting so hard and so old. I know plenty of people have been very successful, didn't get their degree. This marriage is not what I thought would happen. And I don't have biblical grounds. But she's not making me happy, and God wants me to be happy. I'm tapping out. I got a question for you. Did God tell you to quit? Did God tell you to quit? Here's the principle. I'm going to give you one principle today and more principles as we unfold, but just one as we're laying the foundation. Nehemiah had the wisdom to stay in the room where it happened. To stay in the room where it happened. That's a little tip of the hat for my Hamilton fans out there. You got to stay in the room where it happens, all right? He didn't run away. He didn't bail. Didn't go chasing his dream when he was not yet prepared. He stayed in his job. He stayed in his position, though he was under-challenged and underappreciated. He stayed in the room where it happens. You got to put yourself in the right place. Good leaders recognize it's so important that you understand the right time and the right place. Successful people have this knack of making the right decision at the right time and the right place. In fact, Rob, I remember being, a young pastor a long time ago here. I first came to Church by the Glades, a.k.a. Coral Baptist Church. I went to this leadership conference. It was pastors and business people. And they had this guy who wrote all kinds of leadership books. In fact, when you went to the bookstore, remember bookstores? Went to the bookstore. His leadership books were the one that were cover out. I mean, he was like a big deal. Great communicator, compelling. And so he had these leadership like laws. And one of the laws was this. He's up speaking, and man, people are all into him, pressing and taking copious notes. And he said, Leaders make the right decision at the right time. You make the right decision at the right time, you'll be an effective leader. Man, Mike, that pumped me up like, yeah, I want to be a good leader. So I want to make the right decision at the right time. Yeah, I got right decision, right time, right. How do you know? Right? Forget the right decision. How do you recognize the right time? Now, I'm saying you got to put yourself in the right place at the right time. Right place at the right. So how do you tell the right time? Telling the right time, being candid, is very difficult. It's very nuanced. It takes, submitting to God. It takes discernment. Now, what's way easier is recognizing the wrong time. There's certain things you want to do. It's just not God's time. There's certain things you're all fired up to it's just not God's time. It's way easier to recognize the wrong time. Y'all are kind of staring at me. Okay, it's your anniversary. And by the way, Lisa says the big ones, guys, so you know the big ones end in a 0 or a 5, right, honey? 0 or 5. If it ends in a 0 or 5, like your 10th or your 15th, you need to step up. So it's one of your big ones, right? But she says, honey, I got it this year. Let me surprise you. Buy her something. But you come home late from work, and guess what? You found out she has sent the kids to stay all night long with mom. Her mom, right? The candles are lit. The lights are down. The music is playing. The dinner is set. Didn't cook it. Had it delivered. It's her anniversary. Well, beautiful, romantic setting. Now, guess what, my brother? That is not the time to talk to her about the family budget. The family budget is a wonderful conversation at a different time. You bring up the family budget, this night will not land where you want to land, right? It's easy to spot the wrong time. So Nehemiah is in the right place. He's in this right room waiting for the right time. By the way, the right place is easier. Even easier than that is the wrong place. I won't beat this one up because y'all recognize there's certain environments. When you go to those environments, even if you're here not a Christian, just want to be someone who doesn't self-sabotage, you recognize there's certain environments you go to. If you stay there long enough, you get stupid. These environments promote bad decision-making on your part. There's some dynamic in the energy or the vibe or the company in that environment where you drink too much or use or hook up with right. Bad environments. We got to be smart about these kind of things. Right? How about an illustration for the boomers and the Gen Xers? Remember the old sitcom Cheers? Remember Cheers? That was a good show. Ted Danson was a star, but had Kelsey Grammer and Woody Harrelson. They all had like really big careers. Cheers was a great show. But the premise of Cheers, great show, always bothered me because Ted Danson's character, Sam Malone, was a former Major League Baseball player who played for the Red Sox. It was set in Boston, but he was an alcoholic. He was in recovery. And he ran this bar. He owned and ran this bar. Now, they showed him drinking coffee all the time, not drinking alcohol, so he loved coffee. But it bothered me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not in recovery, so if I'm wrong, forgive me. But it seems like for me that running a bar is not a great place for a guy to be who battles with alcohol. If he likes coffee, let him run a coffee shop. How about a coffee shop? If he ran Starbucks, that'd be way better, right? That just makes more sense. Certain environments promote bad decisions. So you got to make sure you stay in the right environment. See, Nehemiah is the cupbearer. He's the wine guy to the king. He has no power, but he puts himself in proximity to power. He stays in the right room habitually. Put yourself in the room where it happens. He puts himself in the right room. You put yourself in the right room, things happen in your life. You put yourself in the right room, the right time will come your way. Example, I'm going old school today. One of the most successful Hollywood careers has to be Harrison Ford. Han Solo, Indiana Jones, all these incredible, Jack Ryan. His career, once upon a time, he starred in 5 of the all-time Hollywood top 10 money makers. I mean, Harrison Ford he still has a big career, but huge career. Now, he didn't start guns a-blazing. His career started very slow. In fact, it started so slowly in Hollywood, he had to get a second job, like many actors, as a carpenter. He was actually a very good carpenter. So what he would do was, anytime the studio needed any kind of set build or something, he worked there. So whether he had a gig as an actor or no, he typically didn't. He would work as a carpenter just at the studio, hoping to run into somebody. And one day, George Lucas noticed what a good carpenter he was, this just before the first Star Wars, and invited him to read, not for a role, to read other actors reading for roles. He was just a guy reading against, a potential Han Solo or Princess Leia, right? And as he read against other people, Lucas noticed, like, this guy's pretty good. He put himself in the right room. Put yourself in the right room, put yourself in the right environment, put yourself in the right space, the right time will come. All right, it's 2021. Time to get back to church. Time to get back to the house. It's 2021. I mean, y'all feel safe? Y'all feel safe? Y'all feel safe? You gotta be loud, they can't hear you. Y'all feel safe, right? And listen, if you're watching and you live in some faraway place and can't get to a good church, listen, online counts. I'll show you in just a moment. But there's something so powerful about when we come together, the spiritual synergy, especially during the worship. The sermon translates pretty good online. There's something about being in the room with other people. In fact, it's a spiritual principle. Let me show you a verse. This is not Nehemiah. This is an awesome verse. This is a verse in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 18, verse 20. And the person making this promise in this verse is King Jesus. Look what Jesus, this is a staggering promise. He says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there. I am there. I am there. I am there. I am there in their midst. I don't even know everything that means. So listen, what does that mean online? Does this translate online? Okay, here's my theology of that. So it needs to be 2 or 3. So if you're watching this alone, if you're watching and you're watching with a degree of focus, right? If you're kind of paying attention, now if you're doing 6 things at the same time, maybe this promise won't apply, because I'm not sure it works if you're making your coffee, your bagel, and then folding your clothes and yelling at your kids at the same time. Right? And we do that. We all multitask a lot. In fact, Lisa said I could use this picture. This was Lisa at the 6:30 service last Sunday night. This was Lisa watching church on her phone, watching the Titans game on her iPad. Now, to her defense, though, listen, she had been to 2 live services in a room before that and watched the 1 o'clock. But she's a big Titans fan. We are, and so that way she was kind of chatting and watching the Titans, who won, by the way. So anyway, so that moment probably would not qualify for the promise of Jesus in Matthew 18:20. All right? So I think what it is, if you're focused, if you're zoned, you don't have to like sing and raise your hands, but be there. You know when you're engaged. And speaking of engaged, we need a quote. It needs to be 2 or 3. So you're 1, I'm 2. We need a 3. So get involved in the chat. Or invite someone, and then once they join the chat, you got 3. So this can work. This can be this viral thing, though it's virtual. I think this promise, and what happened, Jesus he shows up. When Jesus shows up, I don't mean physically, but by way of his promise, spiritually, invisibly, he never shows up just to spectate. When he shows up, he shows off. When he shows up, he changes things. Now, if you're in South Florida and you've been sheltering at home this whole time, so you're watching online. But if you've been out and about, I've met more Church by the Glades people at the mall, and I've met them at the gym, and I see them at restaurants all the time. Hey, you been back to church? Oh, I'm not sure it's safe. People at my gym, I love my gym. They're so bad about wearing their mask. It looks like a Donald Trump rally at my gym sometimes. I'm just like, I shouldn't say that, should I? Anyways, come on, have a sense of humor, y'all. Have a sense of humor. Lighten up. People are too tense these days. this is safe. You need to come back. It's 2020, you need to come back. Time to come back to, put yourself in the room where it happens. Put yourself in the room. Nehemiah gets this window. The king's going to release him. The king's going to empower him. The king's even going to pay the bill. The king's going to resource the whole thing. But only because he stayed in the room. So you need to stay in school or stay in that job or stay in that marriage or not give up on that kid. Whatever God's telling you, do not quit until God's told you to quit. But if you're staying at home, you need to come back to the house. And it might be your mental and emotional health that's at stake. Okay, 2020 was not the worst year ever, but it was bad. And it took its toll. And COVID-19 was first and foremost a physical and medical crisis, but it took a great toll. You know, every stat is up that's negative. Domestic tension, domestic violence, divorce rates, alcoholism, addiction, mental health issues. Let's talk mental health. So I saw a survey a couple weeks ago that blew my mind, and it talked about just what people went through in 2020. And it surveyed Americans. If you're watching some other country, my guess is the stats will be similar for you in your nation. But it surveyed just Americans, and as they self-appraised their own level of mental health and well-being, comparing 2019 with how they landed in 2020. There were 19 different subsets and categories. And funny thing is, if you're stressed out or freaking out or you don't feel good, you know, sometimes you think about, well, if I just had this or that, I'd be okay. Or those people, they have it way better than me because they have this or they have what. Be careful. So maybe sometimes we think, wow, money, because I lost my job or I made less money, I work on commission, and that stressed me out. Well, you're right. The survey said that people who made under $40,000, comparing their mental well-being in 2019 to 2020, a full 18% said they had a lesser degree of mental well-being and health one year compared to the next. That's a huge drop for people making less than $40,000. You think, well, if I made more, okay. They broke down different categories, but one was people making $100,000 more, you know, to whatever. 21% down. More money led to actually more stress. Maybe you think, well, if I was younger. See, I'm in my late 40s. At 30 to 49, 20% reported less of a degree of mental health and well-being in 2020 versus 2019. If I was younger, maybe if I was in my 20s, 18 to 29, 24%, even more. Senior adults who've been through Great Depression, who went through World War II, know that brokenness, 23% down for that. Every single age category was down. Men versus women, both were down. All races, everyone reported a negative drop in mental health, every race. Political, Democrats were down, Republicans were down, independents were down. How about this one? Of the 19 categories, the biggest drop was this: people who attend religious services, seldom or never, a full 31% decline in mental health. By the way, for some of you guys, you love our church and you hit it once or twice, you know, every month or every couple of months. Thank you for coming. But guess what? You didn't fare much better. That group, 25% decline. But there was one group, and by the way, this is not a survey done by pastors. There was one group, this is from a U.S. Gallup poll, the most credible poll there is. The only group that actually saw themselves getting better and stronger and mentally healthier in 2020 were people who attended church every single week. I'm not making this up. Fact check me, I dare you. Up 9.5%. It just works. It doesn't say people who believe passionately, who just show up. Good things happen when you start to show up. Got all these great principles I can't wait to share with you, but you just need to show up, and your step is this: to give yourself by faith to Christ. You're ready to make that. What a brilliant time to make your Christ move. At Lake Worth campus, here at Sawgrass campus, I'm going to pray us out. There'll be prayer partners at the edge of the stage. And listen, if you're watching online, right now a number is coming up on the screen. You just text salvation to this number, and a real live person will reach out to you. What a brilliant time to make that move. Let Jesus show off in your life. Let me pray for you. So, Father God, we believe this. We receive this promise. Thank you for the brilliant example of a man named Nehemiah. He just stayed and he prayed. He stayed and he planned. He stayed and he prepared. And God, you did amazing things. You want to do the same things with us. If we trust you and apply these principles, you'll bring revival. You'll bring renewal. You'll re-energize us. You'll refine us. And in Jesus' name, you will rebuild us. That is our prayer. Amen. God bless you. Y'all be safe. See you in the house.
Yes. So glad you joined us for another Church by the Glades online experience. Thanks for being with us. And what a great night. What a great night. The first installment of our Rebuild series. Quincy, that feature was awesome. And just like Pastor David said tonight, this is a great time to invite somebody, like right now.
Yup. Listen, all you got to do is hit that paper airplane or hit the share button to share it with all of your followers. And make sure, if you're not already, follow us on social media. That's at CB Glades, and follow Pastor David at Pastor D Hughes.
Yes, great ways to stay connected and rebuild your connection with us if that's kind of fallen off for you in 2020. And this is a new year, could be a new you. Join us next time for Church by the Glades online. But right now, listen, if this is your moment, this is an amazing moment, an amazing time, the perfect time, I'd say, Quincy, to start a relationship with Jesus. This is your moment. If you want to do that, go ahead and text the word salvation to 954-329-1818. And just like Pastor David said, a real live person, one of our prayer partners, will reach out to you to talk you through that decision. Until next time, we'll see you for Church by the Glades online.